All right, here's your Youth and Law Final Exam Study Guide. First off, a little definition of separation of powers. The division of lawmaking power among the three branches. So the three branches all have separate powers that the others cannot do. This is also checked in the checks and balances principle, which is a system designed to prevent any one branch of the federal government from becoming too powerful, so the president can't become too powerful, or Congress. The idea of federalism is another principle, that division of power between states and federal government. A big concept that we went over all semester, criminal and civil law, the differences there. Criminal is a regulation of public conduct brought by the government against a person or people, so the government is charging you with a crime. In civil is regulating relationships or relations between people and groups. There's where the lawsuits happen, so a group or a person can bring a lawsuit to another group or person. The Supremacy Clause establishes the United States Constitution and federal laws are the supreme law of the land. Differences between a misdemeanor and a felony punishable by over 1 year, those are your serious crimes. Robbery and murder, misdemeanors are punishable by less than 1 year. Low crimes, domestic violence, shoplifting, things like that. Your definition here, what is jurisprudence? The study of legal law and legal philosophy. Responsibilities of the different branches. The judicial branch interprets the Constitution or all the meanings of the law. The executive branch enforces and executes all the laws, with the president and the federal agencies being responsible. And the legislative branch or Congress makes the laws. The idea of judicial review is used by Supreme Court, process by which the courts decide whether the laws passed by the Congress or by state and local legislatures are actually constitutional. Legislative intent is something judges need to determine when laws are written. So what did the writer of the law intend? Qualifications to be a juror: U.S. citizen, 18 years old, resident of that state, and speak and understand English. In preparatory challenge, a juror is dismissed without a reason. The other way to remove a juror is removal for cause, so that a lawyer might think a jury member is incapable of delivering a fair, impartial trial. So maybe they are a lawyer, maybe they don't like the legal system. There's got to be a reason that they bring up to the judge, and then the judge can remove that person for cause. The participants in a civil and criminal case. In a civil case, you have the plaintiff versus the defendant. In the criminal case, you have the prosecutor, the government versus the defendant. There are 9 judges on the Supreme Court, and they are appointed by the president. Some definitions that you can look up in your book. All right, when we get to tort law, we talk about negligence. There's 4 elements there. Again, you have 3 different torts: intentional, negligence, and strict liability. For intentional torts, something you intended to do something to harm, something caused harm, and then that person brought a lawsuit against you. In negligence, there's 4 elements that you have to fulfill. There's a duty. The defendant had a duty of care to the plaintiff. They breached that duty or violated that duty to the defendant. There's causation, so the defendant's conduct, what they did, caused harm. And then there was damages, so they actually suffered some type of harm or damage. The reasonable person standard is used by judges as well as lawyers. What would a reasonable person do? Someone that always acts responsibly do. There's 2 different types of negligence suits: contributory negligence, laws that protect the defendant if the plaintiff avoided warnings and guidelines, so like a caution wet sign, do not dive sign next to a pool. There's also comparative negligence, allows judges to award damages based on who's most at fault. So maybe there's a defendant who was somewhat at fault, but they were dangerous situation. 3 areas of strict liability: so you have dangerous activities, animals, and defective products. There's only 2 elements to strict liability, which is causation and damages, which makes it harder to defend yourself because you're most likely liable no matter what. It's more difficult then to prove a negligence case because you have those 4 different elements. A tort remedy would be a settlement or solution. So this is solving the problem between 2 people or groups of people, and usually that happens by providing a monetary solution or money. Oftentimes trials don't go to, or cases don't go to trial. because it's expensive. But if they do, it's because they're unable to come up with a settlement, and there's no one will take the blame. Three types of damages. Compensatory damages awarded to compensate the plaintiff for what the defendant has done. So maybe there's medical bills that they want to pay for. Nominal is more of a symbolic, who was at fault, and usually it just results in maybe a $1 type of payment. And then there's punitive, really punish the defendant to make sure that company and that person does not do something like that again. So it could be a large amount of money. Accessory before and after the fact. You have before, helps before the crime occurs, after, helping after the crime occurs. There's the accomplice, so the person that will also help during it, and the principal offender is the person that commits the act. Solicitation, trying to get someone to commit a crime for you. The solicitor would be punished if the other person does not agree. And conspiracy, people are acting together to plan or commit a crime, and all those involved would be punished. The way to get out of these crimes is to go to authorities before the crime occurs. What must exist in order for a crime of omission to occur? You fail to perform something that is required, so maybe, for example, with not paying your taxes, you would be prosecuted. There's more definitions for Unit 3. Anyone can commit arson to any property. For larceny, the elements are what you need to fulfill in order to be charged: carrying away property of another with the intent to steal it. Elements of robbery: immediate possession, taking from a person, and using force or intimidation. The Fourth Amendment, what types of searches are prohibited? Unreasonable searches and seizures. And then a little look at the TLO versus New Jersey case. That's where a student was in the bathroom smoking. The principal brought that person in to search the purse of that individual because they were breaking school rules. When they were doing the search, they found marijuana, and they determined it was okay because they only needed reasonable suspicion in school. So that's the important part, reasonable suspicion. Your last unit, some definitions there, and then a couple questions. Until what age is a person considered a juvenile? At 17. What types of crimes can result in juvenile being tried as an adult? Serious felonies. Two types of activities committed by children that can be get their parents in trouble: selling drugs, being in a gang. The standard of proof is still beyond a reasonable doubt for juveniles, just like adults. You have to prove in the court beyond a reasonable doubt, 99.9% sure this person committed the act. The three different groups that are handled by the juvenile system: your delinquent offenders, so offenders that are committing crimes that adults can commit. Your status offenders, which are individuals who are breaking laws that only juveniles can break, such as truancy or curfew. And then the neglected and abused children, those children that maybe have to be taken from their home. There's a list of the 5 status offenses: running away, truancy, underage drinking or smoking. And when I say smoking, it'd be cigarettes. It's not illegal drugs, because that's also an offense that adults can be charged with. Beyond control of parents and disobeying authority. And the 4 ways a police officer can handle a juvenile offender: you can provide that person with a warning, you can call parents and release them, refer to a social service, or actually detain this individual.